going on right now. Katie, hi. It's so good to see you. Oh, one more person is joining. Okay. Um, okay, I want to share something really quickly about that song. So I don't know if you were paying attention to the words or not, but that song is technically about falling in love with somebody, right? So it's saying like a new day, like you've been touched by this new person and like they just completely changed your life. And every time I hear that song, I always think of falling in love, but with other versions of myself. So it was, I guess I planned playing that one for you tonight because I have been listening to that song and it's just making me super emotional. I don't know if it's like the eclipse or what is going on right now. I feel like I'm really in that Pisces energy. And I need to get more over back to like the Virgo energy. So like going out on walks. Like today I went on a walk like several times because I'm like, I just need to like get out of this. Like there's a lot of emotions that's coming up for me right now. So that song specifically, it's just shedding, right? Like different versions of me and falling deeper in love with myself and who I am continuing to become. So if you are interested in listening to it, it's called A New Day by Celine Dion, and that's kind of my take on it. So I just wanted to start with sharing that tonight for you guys. And now let me go ahead and share. I have a couple of slides tonight. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, why these are pulling up, is the activation sequence. So the activation sequence, just a quick overview for everybody, is the sequence all about you and grounding in the physical plane, so on Earth, right, for your human experience, but getting to know yourself on a deeper level. So this image over here is where we're going to start, actually. So this is what the activation sequence looks like within your profile. It consists of 4 spheres and 3 pathways. Okay, so we'll just do a quick overview looking at this image. So this first sphere is where it begins, life's work, comes down this pathway, and this is the pathway to challenge. And we're actually going to start by talking about that one tonight, but we'll just go over this quick overview. And then that connects to your evolution. Okay, and then here is the pathway of breakthrough. And then here's your radiance, my favorite sphere, radiance. And then here is the pathway of core stability. And then that leads us to your purpose, which is the last sphere and piece of the activation sequence. Okay, so quick overview of what the activation sequence is and what it consists of. And here we're going to start tonight with the pathway of challenge. So this one, as just mentioned, right, it is right between your life's work and your evolution. And your life's work, these actually partner, these 2 spheres, okay? So when we're looking at these spheres and we're looking at the shadows, we'll notice that they're quite similar. So for example, my sphere for life's work, the shadow, is dissatisfaction, okay? And if we look at my evolution, the shadow there is stress. Okay, so you can kind of see how just listening to those 2 words, right, they can play off each other. Okay, so if I'm dissatisfied, most of the time I'm stressed about something. Okay, so they kind of just feed one another. So life's work, again, is what we came here to do. So when we are in that shadow, we are blocking us from experiencing the gift frequency and knowing, being guided, right, to what we are here to do. And then your evolution is your greatest challenge. Hence, the pathway of challenge is the one that connects these 2 spheres. Okay, so if we look at these 2 shadows, we really want to start to open up space for ourselves first knowing what they are, right? I think all of you guys have had your profile pulled by me, but if you have any questions or you need to know how do you find your two shadows in order to start working with these, then feel free to just drop that in the chat and I will make sure you get that after this call. But once we start to look at these two shadows or we align with them, right? And we start to say, okay, dissatisfaction and stress. When do these occur in my life? Okay, and I'm just going to use this example because this is one that shows up quite frequently for me even now. Okay, some of my shadows or when it shows up, the behaviors I've transcended, this one is really, really deeply ingrained in me. I know it because it takes a lot of work for me. Okay, and although it's gotten better and better, I'm still needing to work on this one. But it is my environment, specifically my house. Okay, so if my house is dirty to me, right? My dirty could be different. We could all have a different definition of what is dirty or what feels not clean. Okay, so my environment, very important to me. And it can instantly move me to a shadow frequency. If I am feeling like I enter, like, let's just say I get home and, Tyler's had the kids for a little bit and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happened? Like it's a disaster in here. In my mind now, right? Normally that would have just put me into like an instant, like, what the hell happened? Like, what's going on? I'd come home and like everybody would feel the energy shift because I was in a shadow state. Now it's not that extreme, but I will come home and normally it's like in between my ears, silently to myself, I'm like, oh man, like would have been nice to come home to a clean house, right? And then I'm like, okay, that's not helping me, right? Enjoy that you got to just go away and be with yourself and have some self-care, go with a friend. And now you get to come home to a house that is beautiful, to a loving family, right? So that's kind of how it shows up for me now, but still I'll be like, oh, I need to do this and this, spend some time with family, and then I need to get vacuuming or I need to do this. Okay. So as you start to look for how your shadows show up in your life, you'll start to notice when they occur, how your body feels. Okay. That's what you want to start doing to embody working through this shadow, right? Really these two shadows, because they work together. So as you start to notice it, then you can start to just allow it to be there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's kind of like the first thing is we're on this pathway to challenge. And once we can start looking and noticing these shadows showing up and when they trigger us or when we are triggered and they show up, then we can start to work on accepting it, allowing it. And that's when we start to have breakthroughs. So that's this next pathway, right? Is we basically accept our shadows for what they are. Okay. And we allow them to be there. We'll start to have breakthroughs once we can embrace them fully. So let's talk a little bit more about what that means. So next slide. I think I went over this one. Let's just recap. So your life's work, right? It's I didn't touch base on this one, but I really actually do like this concept. So when you are working with the sphere of life's work, and when I say working with, right, we're looking for that shadow, we're looking to raise our frequency to the gift frequency and align more and more with the gift and then eventually the city, right? But it's when our inner world meets our outer world. So our outer world, most of the time, if I say life's work, we're going to think of that outer work that we do, right? So what is our daily role on a daily basis, right? So me, stay-at-home mom, Gene Key guide is my career or my job, right? So that's kind of my outer work. And now my inner work or my shadow work, as we've talked about a lot, or my contemplation practices start to align, right, with my outer work. So now, just for example, for me, how this has kind of shifted my life is I used to work for a corporate, I was in the corporate world for almost, well, 20 years, but for one company specifically for 17 years. I just left that company in March and loved it. Great experience, learned so much. It was an amazing company. But now, right, I've felt this shift where I really feel an alignment that I need to work with more and more with what my inner work has been telling me. Okay. So there's kind of like this shift. I'm in this transition phase of how can I make this new opportunity, right, and new career work out for me. Okay. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But and then when the shadow shows up, right, like we mentioned, that challenge is something that you're going to face over and over again. And when I say over and over again, I mean that challenge, it's going to keep coming up. Okay. Those shadows, so mine, dissatisfaction and stress, they're going to keep coming up in my life until I can begin to accept it. Right. And by accepting it, not shaming myself, but by giving myself grace to say, it's okay that I'm stressed right now. It's okay that I'm dissatisfied right now. This is part of my work. Okay. So I start to accept those, and then I can start to shift. Okay. I can start to raise that vibration. I can start to accept my challenge more and more. Okay. So this is what we've been talking about, right? So your shadow work is really three things. We want to allow the shadows to be there. It's not wrong. We all have shadows, right? They all come up from time to time, but we need to be able to allow it to be there, accept it, and then embrace it. Okay. So what is allowing it? It's knowing that it is your life. Okay. And it's okay. I really want to stress, like, not shaming yourself, right? We don't want to shame ourselves for where we're at, because the really one of the saddest things on this planet is not how we treat other people, but how.
We can't hear you.
Okay, maybe the headphones are gonna have to go. Can you guys hear me now? Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for telling me that you couldn't hear me. Okay. Did you hear any of this slide, or should I just quickly recap it? Recap. Okay.
Recap it.
Thank you guys so much. Okay. So as our shadow, right, starts to show up. So our shadow work here is allowing it, accepting it, embracing it. And by allowing it, us understanding, right, that really just knowing where we're at. Shadows, they're going to come up, and understanding that, okay, I need to give myself grace with this, right? This is a part of my work. This is a part of me. Our shadows are a part of us. If we didn't have our shadows, right, we wouldn't be able to experience these higher frequencies, because we wouldn't know when we're at a low frequency. Okay, so we want to give ourselves grace. We want to stay away from shaming. So here I say, sometimes there are parts of us, like, we think we hate it. We don't like that we're stressed. We don't like that we react that way. And we start to get in a cycle where we shame ourselves for reacting. Well, what if we were to switch that? Okay, what if we were to switch that and say, it's okay. Yeah, you know what? I got triggered in that interaction that I just had, and I didn't handle it the way that I wanted to handle it. How could I have handled that better? Right. And I do some reflection and I say, okay, this is what came up for me, and this is how I want to handle it the next time, but it's okay. that I didn't handle it as best I could. I love you, right? That's how we want to be talking to ourselves, because I don't know if you guys heard this part, but I feel like this is what I always like to tell people, is that we think of ourselves as, we always want to treat others with kindness, treat others so good. But how do we treat ourselves? Right? Because that should be the most important relationship that we have. The relationship that we have with ourselves and how we treat ourselves. Okay. So we allow our shadows to be there. We start to watch for it. It's the same slide. Please hold. Okay. And then we start to accept it. Okay, so we move into the acceptance phase, where we're starting to understand that it's a beautiful experience to be able to accept our shadows, right? Not shaming ourselves, not blaming ourselves, not complaining, even if it's silently, to ourselves, right? About how we handle things. Just knowing that it's a part of it. And we can start to love ourselves. I love this picture here, right? Of just like hugging ourselves and knowing it's okay. We aren't perfect. We don't want to be perfect. Okay. So then we start to experience transformation as we start to allow our shadow to be there, accept our shadows. We will start to see what it feels like to do this work. And that's where transformation starts to come into play. Okay. And then once we allow, accept, we're ready for the next phase, which is embracing. Okay. We're able to let the shadow in all of the way. Just let that sink in. Okay. We can let it in all of the way. Stress comes, and I can say, I'm feeling stressed right now. Why? I can ask myself why, right? And I can be with this, and I can know it's okay. I'm going to be stressed from time to time. It's going to show up, right? I can begin to open my heart to this part of myself. And then I can start to experience more and more transformation, more and more breakthroughs, because I've been able to start to transform a victim mindset of my shadows to a higher vibration, right? So that's kind of how this works, right? I like to use those three words: allow, accept, embrace. That's what we want to work towards as our shadows start to come up. Okay, and then from there, we understand, right? We're starting to receive the messages that are meant for us. Okay, we're starting to experience those breakthroughs. So we'll do a quick recap here of just your sphere of the life's work. Is every shadow contains a gift. Okay, so if we are not able to experience these lower vibrations, how are we going to experience the higher vibrations, or these gift frequencies, right? It takes time. So the transformation comes with keeping an eye out for when your main challenge, that's what I would leave you with, is just those two first spheres. Start to look for just those, because those are generally the hardest shadow to accept for yourself. It's one that is really ingrained in you, and it's hard to start to do this work and transform it. So I would give yourself patience, be gentle with yourself as you're doing this work, and understand that the transformation is going to come, but it's going to come over time. Okay. So patience and gentleness, very important here. As you start to embrace this challenge, it unlocks other doors within your profile. Okay, so we're just talking about the activation sequence right now. But anytime, really, this is anytime you work with any sphere within your profile, you'll start to unlock, right, that stagnant energy of other spheres. You'll start to wake up and bring light to the dormant spaces inside your body, inside your profile. Okay. And you'll encounter deeper shadows, but in turn, you'll also understand that there's greater gifts to be discovered about yourself. Okay, so we recognize a negative pattern, we begin to embrace it, we start to unlock the gift, we start to be transformed. Okay. Okay, and then I've never done a journal prompt in here, but I wanted to leave you guys because this one is a little bit more embodiment. So I wanted to leave you guys tonight with a journal prompt, and you can choose to do this on your own, or you can choose not to do it, just if it felt good. How do your shadows show up in your life? Okay, so I gave you the example tonight. What are some ways? And Katie, I saw that you need yours, so I will get that to you after this call. So if you did want to take, participate in the journal prompt, you can do that. I'll get it to you pretty quickly. But how do your shadows show up in your life? Number 2, what is your personal response to them when they do show up? Okay, this is a pretty big one to kind of gauge where you're at with the allowing, accepting, and embracing. Okay. So when your shadows show up, and really just those two is what I'm asking you here, your life's work and your evolution, when those shadows show up, what is your response to them? And then how do they make you feel? And that can be live in the moment. You can say, how do they make me feel when they are showing up? Okay. So for example, mine, if I'm stressed or dissatisfied, right, I jump to like need to control, need to try to fix it. What can I do to make my environment better? Right. Or what can I do to, if my kids, let's say, are having a tantrum, right? It causes me sometimes a little bit of anxiousness, a little bit of stress. Okay, so what do I need to do in order to regulate myself or get myself to feel good, right? So that I can help them regulate themselves. So how does it make me feel? Sometimes my shoulders get a little bit tense, right? Sometimes I start to get a little snappy. Sometimes I raise my voice a little bit. So that's not just how it makes me feel, right? But that's kind of an overview of my response and how it makes me feel. Because how it makes me feel is anxious, out of control, need to try to control. Okay, so if you want to do this, and you have a Gene Keys book, I would suggest looking at your Gene Keys book, reading your Shadow of Life's Work, Evolution, or maybe you've done that. Some of you guys are in my course right now. This is another way, right, to help you embody, to help you become more aware, more conscious, vibrate higher. Okay, doing some reflection and some contemplation so that you can kind of gauge where you're at. But that is what I have for you guys tonight. And let me see, is it just, Marnie said, I needed to hear this tonight. I have been shaming myself. I am going to work on this. Thank you. Oh, you are so welcome. And great awareness with knowing, right? As soon as you heard the message, you're understanding like, oh, I felt that shame, right? That felt heavy. It didn't feel good. What can we do, right, to get ourselves out of that so that we can accept our shadow states? Because we all have them. They're all part of us. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Katie, I'm going to look up yours right now. And I just want to leave you guys with, I just love you guys so much. And thank you for being here.